session for today is going to be about accommodation. So what we're going to see is how to set up accommodation, how to book a room online, how to do it from the back office, how to do group booking, how you manage guest sharing, a little bit of reporting, early check-in, late checkout, hotel departure time, and some ideas about things that we have implemented for meals management in the hotel, as well as some hotel check-in. So what you see here is the standard interface of EventWorks when you're in a test event. I'm opening the sidebar here by clicking on the side and going to settings. So you can see a thin blue line here on the side and orange here. Blue is the back office, so it's basically where you do all your data management. And orange is settings where you do all your configuration. So here I'm going to settings, accommodation, and clicking on general settings. So first tab, you have 4 different steps in setting up your accommodation: general, hotels, rooms, and multiple stays. General, you start by defining your first check-in date and last checkout date. If you have an event, usually you have some staff and some people arriving a couple of days or a couple of weeks earlier and leaving afterwards, and that's where you manage this. Multiple stay, we have activated it for fun here. It is used if you either have very long events or if you have events taking place in multiple cities, multiple sites, or multiple countries. Like, for instance, we had a volleyball championship that we managed that was in 3 different countries. So people were moving from country to country and they needed multiple stays. Next tab, hotels. I have created 2 hotels here. This example, this demo event that we have with Neo and IGNITX is based on the boxing qualifier. So here I have set up 2 different hotels because I'm managing accommodation in Amman. The first hotel I have created is the Marriott and then the Regency Palace. Let me click on the hotel. You have the different details here. And there are 2 elements interesting here. The first one is that I have made this hotel available to some group only. It means that only athletes, team official, and extra team official will see this hotel, and the other ones won't. That allows you to manage your allotment in a much more precise way by allocating different hotels to different groups of people. That is used for people booking hotel rooms online. When you are managing it from the back office as an event manager, you are free to do whatever you want. Second thing interesting here is a time to airport. We will use that a little bit later. We use that for basically the hotel departure time in connection with your flight details. So you have one hotel here that only the athletes, team official, and extra official see. And if I go back to hotels, we have the Amman Marriott. And for the Amman Marriott, I put visible for all groups, so everybody will see this hotel. Next tab is rooms. So you have your allotment here with 2 types of rooms for the Amman Marriott and 1 type for the Regency Palace. So let's take the single basic here. So I select my hotel, I select my room type, and designation is the hotel designation, meaning that when you share your rooming list with the hotel, it's good if you have the exact same denomination as they have, because it makes their life easier. Every room has a capacity. That's very important because you use this when you do your automated or manual assignment. If a room has a capacity or 2 or 3, when you do automated assignment, it will put people there. Visible on front office, I have deactivated, meaning that people online will not see this room. So I'm basically reserving this room only for back office usage because I don't want people to book it. Let's go back to room allotment. So you have your 3 here, and you have what we call your initial allotment here on a day by day. So the dates here are built based on the general settings that we did before. So that allows you to have an allotment that is different on a day-by-day basis. And this is something that you can change at any time, and the system will automatically recalculate your allotment. When booking for a room online, meaning from the front office, you cannot do overbooking. If you are managing accommodation from the back office, the system will let you do overbooking, but will give you a warning saying you are doing overbooking on the single basic. Do you want to continue? Yes or no? We leave that flexibility because we think that as an event manager, you basically know what you are doing. And practically speaking, you're very often shuffling groups of people from one hotel to another, or you know you can quickly call the hotel that they still have availability, that you can get some extra room, and so on. Multiple stays, I'm not going to go into details here, but it basically lets you give a name to your stay. So when it comes to setup of accommodation, there is nothing much for the moment. Let's go back to the back office, and using the live filter, I'm going to find my registration here. So live filter allows you to find any data on any report or any list based on what is here. So I find my registration. What I'm going to do is that I'm in a group IOC, BTF, and broadcaster. What I'm going to do is log in as attendee, meaning that I'm going to impersonate basically myself, which is kind of silly, and see the front office part of the system, meaning the public part of the system. So here I have my registration. This is what we call the responsive design. And the content that you see here is fully customizable. So you can change it, you can change the color theme, add field, and add tabs and do whatever you want. Let me go to hotels. Okay, here I only see the Amman Marriott because I'm not an athlete, a team official, or an additional team official, so I don't see the other hotels. So I can only select this hotel. And I can only select the double standard because if you remember, we hid the single room saying that it's only available from back office. So here I'm going to start to select a check-in date and check-out date. Here it is. I can display it as a value list or as a nice calendar if I want to. And here I'm going to go to the next step. So here, what the system does is what we call direct booking, meaning that if I go to my registration, so here I'm back in the back office, I go to the details of my registration, I go to accommodation, and I can see that my status is accommodation booked, and I have one booking here. See, Amman Marriott double standard, and my room is booked. So that is the first online process where, based on availability, the system will let me fully do an accommodation booking. This can also be linked to our invoicing and online payment system. So for some people, like some guests or observers, you can say these ones, they need to pay for their own room. I don't really care about what they're doing there in that hotel. And then they book their room and then they pay by credit card for it. That's something you can do on a per group basis. So that's the first process. The second process there is, let me take someone else, let's say Sylvina. Silvina, I decided that she is an athlete, and I'm going to log in as Silvina. What I have decided here is that as an athlete, she can just put a check-in date and a check-out date. So let's say she wants to arrive on the 29th and leave on the 8th, so that she has a little bit of time to visit the place. And here, what the system did is that the system recorded what we call a wish, meaning that if I go to her registration, there is no accommodation. She has what we called a wish, meaning that she would like to arrive from the 29th until the 8th. That's a second process where you basically gather all the wishes when people want to arrive and when they want to stay. You can also add a room type or other information, but then you have a manager or a coordinator who validates it and say, this is fine, I'm going to book her room, or who say, this is not fine, she's staying for too long, I want her to leave on the 7 or 6. So here I'm going to copy the request date because I'm going to accept what she wants, and I'm going to put her in the single basic. And I'm going to save accommodation. And here, this is how I do a single person accommodation booking from the back office. So now, most of the time, you have groups of people, and what you do is called group accommodation booking. So let me show you how it works. To do that, I stay in the back office and I go to a report. So I'm going to open that folder, and I'm going to open a report called Jordan Accommodation. What I'm going to do here is use the live filter to find everybody from Kazakhstan, and I want all the women from Kazakhstan because I want to do a group booking for them. So here I have 10 records out of 486. What you see here is that I put Kaz for the country code, and I put woman here, and it gathered the data together using the live filter to isolate these people. So I'm going to select these 10 people here. If there are 10 people, I can just do one by one if I want to, or I can do select all, and it select these 10 people. These 10 people, I'm going to go to manage hotel rooms. I'm going to book rooms, and I'm going to put them in the Amman in a double standard. And I can either copy the wish date or use any other field, or specify that I'm going to go from the 27th until the 5th. And I'm going to ask the system to do automated room sharing. Automated room sharing works based on the room capacity. If you remember in the beginning in settings, you can define a capacity per room type, like a 1, 2, or 3. So it's using that criteria. It is using the check-in date and the check-out date. So it will first browse through the records, find everybody with the same check-in date and the same check-out date, because then it's a perfect match, and put them in a room together, because it's better in optimizing your capacity. Then it will do a second run and find people with the same check-in date, but different checkout date, and put them together. Then it does a third round with different check-in date, same checkout date, and for the rest, it will just attribute them randomly. So here, I'm going to do that. It's a background process. So if I just reload the data here, it has done most of them. And if I reload here, another one, and here, another one. So here I have my room bookings that have been done for an entire group of people. Let's now go to another report. And I'm going back to Jordan, and I'm going to take the accommodation Marriott. What the system is doing here is that I created a custom report for those of you who have been to a couple of the other previous webinars. With EventWorks, you can create as many reports as you want and manage them in exactly the way you want them. So here on this report, what I did is that I asked the system to only show me people who have a room and who are staying at the Marriott. And I have done a couple of bookings now. So let's say I want to see all the changes today since 4 o'clock. What the system is doing is that it is finding these people here. Let me just hide the changes. What the system is also doing is that it is still keeping the cancelled here. See, this is extremely important when you're doing a rooming list, because a rooming list is some data that you share with the hotel. And if you don't show the cancellation, they might miss people and then they might charge you for a no-show. If I take a concrete example, I book a room for Neo at the Marriott early this morning. At about 11 a.m., the Marriott comes, download a rooming list, they see Neo, they put her in a room, everything is fine. At 12, I say, Neo, I'm going to move her from the Marriott to the Regency because it's closer to the competition site and she doesn't want to walk. So I move her to the Regency. At 2 p.m., the Marriott downloads a rooming list and they don't see Neo. What will happen then is that if they don't see Neo, it is quite likely that they will not know that they need to cancel Neo's room. So they will keep the room for her. And on the day of the check-in, she will not be here and she will charge you, and they will charge you for a no-show. So here you have a report. What I can do is that if I go to edit report, that's my report builder. I can share this report. So what is happening is that I have a link here. And this link, I'm going to give it to the Marriott. And when the Marriott gets the link, what they will do is type this. They will enter the password. They will choose if they want their report as an Excel or CSV. You can have a terms and condition page. And here they can say, I want the full report or I want only the changes that happened today. So then they click this and let's say we allow the download and they get a report that is looking like this with the changes that appear in red. So basically it means that you create a report, you work with the hotel in defining what data they need, how they need it to be structured. You create a link for them and they can access the data at any time and it will always be live data and always up to date. And they have their own change tracking system that allows them to identify changes. And with this, you're basically saving them tons of time, lots of headache for you, and potentially a lot of money too. So next example to show a little bit how accommodation is working. I'm going to find my brother here. And my brother has an accommodation. And he is sharing a room with his wife. So he's staying from the 30th until the 2nd. You have his wife staying at the same time. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to go to his wife registration, and his wife is now decided that she will stay until the 5th. So what is happening here is that you have two people sharing a room, with the room in the name of my brother, arriving on the 30th and leaving on the 2nd, and his wife arriving on the 30th and leaving on the 5th. So in terms of reporting, what is happening is that to manage that, we created a couple of different things. Where did I put this report? Okay, that's this one. I love the live filter. It's a real lifesaver. So what is happening is that if I take my, if I do find by name, I don't see my brother's wife. I see her here. So you see my brother accommodation booking. You see his wife. You see the date, but I don't see her. And the information that is sent to the hotel is this one here, because if I was sending a record for my brother and one for his wife, there is a chance that they might do a double booking. Also, what is happening is that I have two check-in dates and two check-out dates. I have the check-in date here from the 30th until the 2nd, which is the date of my brother. And I have a room check-in and room check-out date, which means that in this one, what the system is doing is taking the first check-in date of everybody in the room and the last check-out date of everybody in the room. And this is basically what is communicated to the hotel in the rooming list. Because if you don't do that, when he check out on the 2nd, they will just lock the room key and his wife will not be able to enter in the room. So that is the way it works. What I can also do is that on this report, I can add a field. What I'm going to add here is that I'm going to add the field accommodation count. So I'm just adding a new field to the report, going back to the report. And here, what the system did is that it added all the 0 and 1 for everybody here, so that if you export it in Excel, then you can make a nice total at the bottom. So now let's see another thing with early check-in and early checkout. So I'm going back to my report, I'm going back to Jordan, and I'm going to create a report called arrivals here. What I did here, you can see here that there's what we call a sub-summary. So basically, I'm sorting all data by arrival date. Let me just do an expand. So I have 6 people arriving on the 27th and 9 people arriving on the 26th. And you see that there's an early check-in here. What we do is that we use our calculated fields to automatically put a yes or no based on the arrival time. Meaning that arrival time before 10 in the morning means that it's an early check-in, so I'm going to communicate that to the hotel, and departure time after, it's a normal check-in, and the same is for checkout. And we can push it even a little bit further because we love challenges. If you see here, both are arriving at 11. This is not an early check-in, and this is an early check-in. The reason is that she is staying at the Marriott and she's staying at the Regency. So what is happening is that different hotels have different policies for early check-in and late checkout. So basically we integrated this into what we call a calculated field. We're not going to go in details into calculated field now, but it's one of the most powerful features that really lets you manage your own rules by yourself without having to ask for developers. And what you do with this is that you create a formula that looks like this. And here I said, if the hotel is the Marriott, and if the arrival date is before 10 o'clock, it's a yes, so it's an early check-in. And if the hotel is the Regency Palace, and if the arrival is before 1 p.m., it's an early check-in as well. So basically, it allows you to build your own rules to really do whatever you want. Let's go back to report. So here you saw this report. I'm going to send it to Excel. Open it. And when we use a sub-summary, what the system does is that it creates two tabs. One tab that is the data exactly as it is presented, and another one that just gives the summary by the fields that you use to filter data. Now let's go back here, and I'm going back to Jordan, and I'm looking at departures. What we do here, if you remember, when we set up hotel, we had a field called a time to airport. So what we are doing is that we calculate the time between the flight departure time and the time to airport to define at what time you need to organize transfers from the hotel to the airport. So here again, you can see people are leaving on the same flight at 10:30 p.m. One is staying at the Amman and one is staying at the Regency. And just for fun, let's say that the Regency is much further away from the airport than the Amman Marriott. So here you have a different time. And what it does then is that it rounds it up by 15 minutes increments, or we can specify half an hour if you want, so that you don't, because basically you don't have shuttles coming every 5 minutes to do your transfers. You might have one every 15 minutes or every half an hour or every hour. And this you can basically automate it. And what is happening is that 2 days before departure time, you send a mass communication to your attendees with a beautiful PDF using our document module. Neo presented the document module yesterday that gives the departure time and that tells people at what time they need to be in the lobby for the departures.